Bubba Scrubba, Fantasy Sports Advice and Analysis, Volume 3, Episode 7. Marker. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be reviewing the AFC East from a fantasy perspective. Just as a reminder, I've been watching the NFL continuously since the year 1984. I've been participating in fantasy sports leagues since 2002. And I've been running my own fantasy football league since 2008. In that league, we run PPR scoring or point per reception, and that's going to inform some of my analysis here. So let's get into it. First team on our list is the New England Patriots. New England made a surprising Super Bowl run last year. I don't think a lot of people thought that they had the offensive firepower to get that done, but if anything, they've actually added to that side of the ball in the offseason. So probably the most draftable early player that you're going to get is A.J. Brown, who came over in a trade. I think it was just last month. The rumors were flying for several months and during the draft, but they did get the deal done finally. So far, he's gotten off to a rocky start in training camp, fighting with their top corner and just basically kind of not being the top dog like I guess he assumed he was going to. That being said, with his track record, with his size and his physicality, you're going to spend probably a late second round pick or early third round pick on him. Very tough to predict what you're getting with A.J. Brown this year. Now, we all know that in years past, he is very vocal about if he's not getting the ball, that he'll complain to the coaching staff. And in Philadelphia, they did a good job of, greasing the squeaky wheel, as it were. In New England, it could be a whole new ball game. We don't know. They have some new players in the position group, including Romeo Doubs and including this Keyshawn Butte, who actually was a rookie last year. By all accounts, Butte has been Drake May's #1 target, and he's had the best connection, and AJ has struggled. Now, that's not, new news considering the fact that he's a late addition to the team. Again, very hard to project, though. So are we looking at 80 catches, maybe 1,100 yards? I'm going to say on the lower end of touchdowns, potentially, maybe 6 if he's fully healthy and the connection grows throughout the year. That being said, there is no guarantee of that. Now, I mentioned Romeo Doubs. He was, let's just say, a middling player in Green Bay. Never really did take off. He never was projected to do so. He doesn't have the prototypical size or speed that the position demands to be a dominator. However, he is very steady. He runs crisp routes. He does have a knack for finding the end zone. Again, we have no idea what we're getting here because these two guys are brand new to the offense, and especially in the wide receiver group, it's tough to predict when you have new players, how they're going to gel with the quarterback, if they're capable of running the route tree that a specific offense demands of them. So obviously Dobbs is worth a pick. I'm thinking that you can get this guy probably pretty deep, round 7, round 8, somewhere in there, right? And so if you just do a direct value comparison between A.J. Brown and Romeo Dobbs, Dobbs is the better value. You can get him a lot deeper. He could put up just as good a numbers as A.J. Brown. We just don't know, unfortunately. Now, this Keyshawn Butte is probably the most intriguing of all three, considering that he was a rookie last year. He did flash. He does have the physical traits. He's been in the system. He has the chemistry with Drake May based off of training camp reports this year. He, again, is going to be a guy that you're probably going to be able to get deeper. Round 8, round 9, round 10. Absolutely worth a flyer at that price tag. And, if you bring him in as, let's say, your wide receiver 5, you're doing really good, I feel like, because this guy has the upside potentially to be the #1 player in this offense, #1 receiver in this offense anyway. So that brings us to Drake May. He's obviously a bona fide, he broke out last year, bona fide QB1. Is he in the top 5? I don't necessarily think so, although he does have the ability to run the football, which is going to basically be the difference between a top 5 quarterback and anybody thereafter, is the ability to run the ball and potentially punch it in the end zone. So you could draft Drake May early. You can draft him often. I'd say starting in round 5 or 6 is probably when you're going to see him go off the board. I have no issue if you want to make him your centerpiece quarterback on your roster. Um, in the running back position group, you have a couple of guys, Travion Henderson, who was a rookie last year, and then Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is in year 3 or 4. Ramondre Stevenson. Let me say that again. So they both kind of cancel each other out. It's kind of a true 50-50 timeshare. Travion is by far the more electric player, the home run hitter, is capable of having a monster game for you, 200 plus yards, multiple touchdowns, and just take over a game. However, the reports out of training camp are not so good. Apparently, he's struggling at pass pro, and in the modern NFL world, if you are running back and you cannot block the blitz, you can't get that blitz pickup for the quarterback, you will not be on the field. Okay, so he will get his opportunities because of the fact that he is so electric. However, they will be in predictable first down, second down, obvious running situations versus Ramondre, who's going to be on the field on third downs specifically, but also he's going to get his looks also in first and second down. I think this is more of a kind of a hot hand situation where one guy might, just be looking better than the other, and then he will dominate the carries in any given game. Travion is going to probably go a little bit higher. You're probably looking at round 4, 5, potentially Ramondre, maybe more 6, 7. Depends on your appetite. If you're looking for the home run hitter with upside, it's Travion. He always has the opportunity to improve on his pass pro throughout the season. But breaking training camp, Ramondre is going to have a major role. He's going to be on the field for the crucial third downs, gets catches, is kind of also the goal line back. I'm looking at Travion is more of an RB2/3 on your roster, and Ramondre is more of an RB3/4. The last player who's noteworthy in this offense is Hunter Henry, the tight end. He's nothing sexy. He is fairly consistent. He does have a few spike games here or there. However, with the receiver room being completely overhauled and the depth that they have now there, I'm not so sure that this guy won't be a little bit more of an afterthought. That being said, he is a low-end tight end one. If you're punting, the position and just kind of ignoring it in your draft, you could do worse than getting Hunter Henry. However, I mean, let's say 50 catches, let's say 800 yards, maybe 4 to 5 touchdowns. Not horrible production, just not league-winning production. Second team on our list is the dumpster fire New York Jets. And I mean, this team struggled mightily. This franchise has struggled mightily. I mean, they have been desperate to find a franchise quarterback. They did not find that again this offseason. But let's just start with really one of the only draftable players on this team, which is the running back Breece Hall. You're going to probably spend about a third-round pick. If you can get him in the 4th round, you're doing pretty good. That being said, I just don't know what the upside is for this guy and this offense. He has the talent. He just re-upped with the team, so he's there long term. But he's in his mid-20s, so he's in his prime. But with the quarterback play as shaky as it is, with the lack of real weapons in the offense, with just the fact that their coach is a defense-first coach, just the overall lack of enthusiasm with this team. Now, not to say, I mean, this is why any given Sunday, right? Could be the sleeper team of the year. Who knows? But just based off of history, I just don't see anything. Is this guy going to get 3? If he can stay healthy, is this guy going to get 300 carries? Yes. Is he going to break 1,000 yards? More than likely. Is he going to score 5, 6 touchdowns? Yes. Will he get some catches? Yes. For me personally, I mean, if I have 2 solid guys at RB1 and RB2, and this guy's just sitting there, yeah, sure, take a chance, RB3. But he's basically priced as an RB2 that really should be an RB3. Now, backing him up is this Braylon Allen. A couple of years ago, he was the darling of the fantasy community. Everybody said he had a lot of juice and that this guy could eventually usurp Brees Hall in the starting role. That has not materialized. It's not to say that this guy doesn't have talent. He does. But on such a weak offense, when you have a workhorse back like Brees Hall in front of you, his opportunities are going to be limited. Of course, potentially a waiver wire guy if something happens to Hall. Is this guy draftable? Maybe at the end of your draft, if you're just taking a flyer, one of your last picks. Sure, if you feel like this guy, is going to do something. But again, I think the offense holds him back. So, in the wide receiver position group, it's headlined by Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is an all-world talent, but again is suffering from a lack of decent quarterback play that has not changed this year. Will this guy catch 80 balls? Sure. Will this guy get 1,000 yards? Potentially. 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns? Sure. It's all, but these are decent numbers. But really, that's the kind of numbers you want on the bench. There are people that are drafting this guy as their wide receiver 2. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Wide receiver 3 potentially. Wide receiver 4, you're doing great. But if my slot comes up in the draft and I see Garrett Wilson, I'll figure out somebody else. I'll look lower on my list and find a sleeper that I'm just more excited about. Now, of course, this could come back and bite you in the ass, of course. But there's just nothing on this offense that just makes me go, wow. Playing across from him is this Adonai Mitchell, formerly of the Colts. Now, this guy did flash last year. However, this is when Garrett Wilson was injured, and he was kind of the de facto number 1 receiver. As the number 2 guy, he's more of what I would call the lid lifter, meaning he's the deep threat, the guy that you're trying to kind of get 2 guys to cover so that you're covering the deep ball, and then you go underneath the Garrett Wilson. With a healthy Garrett Wilson there, I just don't feel like this guy he's borderline draftable. Again, he's kind of like this Braylon Allen, maybe a last round pick. Maybe somebody will draft him. I don't know. You probably could get him for free though on waivers or free agency. The quarterback is not even worth mentioning. I'm just going to mention him because of the fact, in the context of the other players we talked about, it's Geno Smith, formerly of the Seahawks, and then last year he played on the Raiders. In Seattle, he resurrected his career. He's come full circle now back to the Jets. I believe the Jets were the organization that originally drafted him. He was horrible there. He did go to Seattle. He kind of put his career back together, but that was in a very structured environment where, first of all, he was a younger player. Second of all, they had an established staff. They had an established offensive identity. It is not a pass-first team, or wasn't at that time. And he wasn't asked to do a whole hell of a lot other than just not turn the ball over, which he was adept at. Playing in New York with this cast of characters, this guy's not draftable. Nobody should draft him. You should not be rostering him at any point. I don't see a fantasy path for this guy this year. The next team on our list is the fantasy all-star Buffalo Bills. And, the talk of Buffalo this year is the new stadium that they're going to open. Obviously, it's a Super Bowl or bust kind of mentality, which is why they fired Sean McDermott. Not sure if that was the right move, but they went to the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. So far, everybody's saying what a great job Brady is doing in training camp. So potentially this will unlock a little, I don't want to say a full gear, maybe a half gear in the Buffalo offense. But I mean, what you see is what you get. So right now, bona fide first round pick is James Cook at running back. This guy had a monster season last year. I traded for him about halfway through the season. And I mean, this guy turned on the Jets for me, and he was helping to carry my team through the second half of the season. By all accounts in training camp, the offense has been updated just a bit, some new wrinkles, and this guy is getting quite a few catches, apparently. He was already a good pass catcher out of the backfield, but apparently this is going to be something that they're going to try to focus on for him. I would assume, as opposed to just running him into the ground and, expecting that his physical quickness and awareness is going to be able to miss tackles. Design plays, bubble passes, whatever, pop passes, get the ball to him in space and let him make a move. And so, obviously in a point per reception setting, those extra points are huge. I have no problems drafting James Cook. He's going anywhere after pick 6 in the first round, pick 8, pick 10, whatever. If he's in front of you, pick him. Great offense, obviously very cohesive because the offensive coordinator from last year, last couple of seasons, was elevated to head coach. Not a new guy, not a new system. Backing him up is Ray Davis. Ray Davis is a pretty decent player. He's probably a better real life player than fantasy player. However, and luckily we haven't had to see him thrust into the RB1 role in Buffalo because Cook has been very healthy. But if he were to get injured, Cook that is, Ray Davis would be a plug and play replacement. They do have that Ty Johnson as well, who is really more of the third down catching specialist. But this Ray Davis would get all the opportunities on first and second down, and he'd be the goal line guy. Very much worth drafting, very much worth handcuffing for all Cook owners, and you can get him for virtually free at the end of the draft. I would assume that most people will draft this guy this year, so it's not a guy you can ignore. But if you drafted Cook and you're on your last pick and Ray Davis is there, the last couple of picks, pick him and don't think about it. Of course, the overall best player in the offense is Josh Allen. I don't know what else there is to say. He's coming off an MVP season. The guy throws the ball. The guy runs the ball. The guy plays through injury. He gets hurt. He comes back on the field. I don't want to say he's indestructible. I mean, knock on wood. But, I mean, he's the bona fide absolute QB1 overall in the fantasy landscape. You're going to have to burn at least a fourth round pick and more likely a third round pick because we all know there's that one owner that goes early for the quarterback, right? So if that's your strategy, this is your guy. I have no problems picking him in round 3. You're going to get elite production through the air, on the ground. He's going to, this guy's going to throw for 30 touchdowns and run for potentially another 10. So that's 40 touchdowns, right? Plus the yardage. So, and he'll be on the field more likely than not. So, there's not much else to say. Hyperbole aside, this guy is a stud. Now, the one thing that was, very good about Buffalo this year is that they finally did bring in some help at the wide receiver position. Specifically, they made a trade for DJ Moore, formerly of Carolina by way of Chicago Bears. Now in Chicago, he had kind of lost his role, had, moved down, let's say more like the third option when he started out as the first option. In Buffalo, he will be the first option, although from what I've read, he is having trouble adapting. That being said, I just don't see any reason why you would shy away from this guy. The price tag is probably going to be anywhere from around 4 to 6. If you can get this guy as your wide receiver 3, you're doing really good, especially in this offense. Now, running across from him is going to be Khalil Shakir. Now, Shakir last year was the de facto number 1 receiver. He is by no means a yak monster, or anything like that. He just gets a lot of catches. He's on the field and he gets a lot of catches. He struggles to score touchdowns. So, whereas a DJ Moore, tough to predict, especially when you have a new receiver there, how they're going to kind of divvy this up. Josh Allen likes to throw to Shakir, especially over the middle. I don't think it's a stretch. You're going to get 80 catches out of Shakir. He's probably going to come close to 1,000 yards. The problem is that he might score 2 touchdowns all season. So while steady, again, this is another situation. You have a DJ Moore priced as a wide receiver 2, but probably more of a 3 or a 4 potentially. You have Shakir priced as a 3, really more of a 4 or potentially a 5. I'm not saying I'm ignoring these guys, but the only way I'm drafting them is if they fall. Like if you get DJ Moore in the 6th round or the 7th round, pull the trigger on that. But I'm not paying a 4th round price tag when I could go in another direction with more, I don't want to say consistent, but more guaranteed production. I don't want to draft a guy and then play wait and see. Now, the last person that's worth mentioning is Dalton Kincaid. Love the name. Plays tight end. He is the move catch tight end in this offense where Dawson Knox is the inline blocker, although Knox does run a lot of routes. Knox's, him being on the field does cut into Kincaid's chances. Josh Allen does like to throw to Kincaid. Josh Allen likes to throw to Kincaid in the end zone. The problem with Kincaid is that he has really struggled with staying on the field the last few seasons. When he is on the field, he produces, but he just is an injury-prone player. Has already picked up a lot of different injuries. I think a lot of people are overdrafting this guy. I know that I've seen him on some sleeper lists, but personally, for me, I look at him like I've had him on my team a few years, and he's always been kind of a disappointment. If you get this guy as your second tight end, a backup, you're doing really good. That being said, most people are drafting him as, let's say, a top six, top seven tight end one. At that price tag, you're probably looking at round 4, 5, or 6 if you're going to draft. Let's say 5 or 6 if you're going to draft him. It's just too steep for me. I'd rather have like a Brenton Strange where you can get deeper and, I think just has more raw upside and less injury concern than Kincaid. But if Kincaid drops, if he's like Shakir, if people shy away because, Buffalo is more of a sum of its parts kind of offense. It's all Josh Allen, James Cook, and then a sum of parts from everywhere else. One person will emerge from that group. We just don't know which one. The last team on our list is the Miami Dolphins. Now, Miami has basically done a complete overhaul. They do this every 2 or 3 seasons. Mike McDaniel's gone. Now they have a defense first coach from Green Bay who is trying to create a Green Bay South mentality in Miami. It won't happen. It never has happened. I don't see the Dolphins ever being competitive again until they get Dan Marino 2.0, basically. Okay. It's the only way they're going to be competitive. Playing in the AFC East for Miami sucks. Now, they're a legacy team that's in this division. And, from a historical perspective, they belong in that division. However, they're much more suited climate-wise to the AFC South because, come December, come January, this team is traveling to Buffalo, to New York, to New England, places where they're playing outside, the weather's freezing, and you're in Miami and it's 80 degrees, So it's like, the problem with Miami is just that there's just it starts from the owner on down. Anyway, let's get on to the players. So the one really draftable guy is this Devin Achane, the running back. A couple years ago, really came on strong as a rookie, electrifying player. Last year actually had a pretty decent season. I shied away from drafting this guy, but this guy was the engine of the Dolphins offense and he stayed healthy. Now, this guy is an easy second round pick. That being said, with Mike McDaniel now gone, you don't have this little offensive guru there to, plot for this guy anymore. How is that going to affect his production? And especially considering that they have next to nothing anywhere else on the offense. It's 8-man in the box every time. Does this guy have the speed and the wiggle to get around it? I don't know. But in the group where he is at with this Omariah Hampton and this Chase Brown and so on, there's a few other guys I'm forgetting. I'd rather have those guys than Achane. I feel like there's just better prediction for them. Achane is all over the board. He could be an RB, a second round pick that plays like a first round pick, or the exact opposite. I guess we'll see. The receiver group here is nothing to write home about. I mean, the de facto number one is this Malik Washington. You should draft him because if he's the number one receiver, I mean, he's going to get some production, obviously. But, I mean, you're talking round 8 or later. Okay, period. There's no way I can project what this guy's going to do. Or there's another guy, Jalen Tolbert. No way to project what either of these guys is going to do. Malik Willis is the quarterback here. Malik Willis, formerly of the Titans by way of Green Bay. Now, this guy has actually showed out every time that he's had an opportunity to play. So he's a good real-life player, but he's really more of a run-first quarterback and a pass-second quarterback. In Green Bay, they turned him into a serviceable passer, but I just don't see a real path. Now, this Malik Willis might be worth a pick as a QB2 if you're hell-bent on rostering a second quarterback because of his kind of dual threat ability, but he is a poor man's, and I mean an extremely poor man's Lamar Jackson, okay? So with such kind of unknown quarterback play, I feel like, if they're going to do this defense-first mentality, that's going to extend to the running game. Run the ball. It means he's going to run the ball, which means he's going to take hits. He's not an especially big guy. Yeah, I don't think there's really a lot to say. One of the only guys on this offense that kind of qualifies as a sleeper is this Greg Dulcich, who I think he was playing on Denver the last few seasons. He's a decent tight end, pass catcher, and people are basically saying this guy could be the de facto number one receiver on this offense. That's how bad their offense is. Again, if you're punting the tight end position, you're super deep, or you want a second tight end, this guy is draftable. He is rosterable. Well, that's it for the AFC East. We have one more division left, the AFC West. We'll film that video, I don't know, maybe this weekend, maybe early next week. Then we're going to start transitioning into basically just updates from training camp, guys that got injured, position battles, where they're at, other trends, what's going on in the league, et cetera, et cetera. Again, please, I know 17 subscribers. I appreciate every one of you. I want to just keep climbing. Let's start a dialogue. I'd love to give the advice about, what pick do you have? Who are you thinking about picking? Whatever. I'd be more than happy to answer any and all questions. Talk to you guys soon.